What's up, boxing fans? Welcome back to Xicana Boxing on YouTube. If you're coming back, and if this is your first time, please consider subscribing. I'm really trying really hard to get to 10K pretty soon, so please go ahead and subscribe and share with your friends if you haven't yet. Welcome back to another segment of What Did I Miss? And if you hear me maybe have sniffles, I am recovering from a little sick, so my apologies if you hear my mocos on the mic. Now, in this week's segment of What Did I Miss? I covered William Zepeda versus Maxi Hugues ringside from the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas. And Jesus Christ, William El Camarón Zepeda should change his name from El Camarón to Energizer Bunny because his body attack was some of the most relentless I've seen ringside in a really long time, if not ever. Ringside. So it was really cool to see how, even though, Maxi Hugues can easily be said, oh, well, he's just another, he gave it a go, mate. He did what he did against Cambosas, and most people had him beating Cambosas. So for El Camarón Zepeda to come over here and just dispose of him the way that he did is really, really cool. And it was really awesome to watch ringside, to watch him just, systematically break down Maxi Hugues in less than 5 rounds. That was pretty freaking amazing to see. And while we know that this was a title eliminator for either Tank's title or the winner of Lomachenko versus Cambosas, right? It seems like both Oscar and El Camarón really have their eyes set on Shakur Stevenson, which to me, all power to them. That is really fucking cool. I personally would love to see El Camarón Zepeda, whether I feel like he wins these fights or not. I would love to see him against these top guys, against these champs, and see what his style of relentless, just volume punching, and how the champions will react to it. Whether he beats them or not, I don't know. But would I love to see him against Tank? Of course. Would I love to see him against the winner of Lomachenko versus Cambosas? Of course. So props to Zepeda, props to Oscar for claiming that they want this fight. Shakur went online and said that he would want to. More on that later. But it was really great to see ringside. It's been great to see Camarón Zepeda develop. The first time I saw him was when he beat Hector Tanajara, right? Who was one of Golden Boy's upcoming prospects that they were really highlighting out of RGBA, out of San Antonio, Texas, right? This guy that had a really good job, really solid fighter. And Camarón fucked his ass up real fucking quick. So that's when I was like, oh my God, who is this kid, right? So from that to this, it's been really great to see him develop, and I can't wait to see what fight comes next. Who do you want to see him against? Whether you think he wins or lose, let me know in the comments. The undercard started pretty freaking quick with a second round knockout for Joel Iriarte in his pro debut and Golden Boy debut. I got messages from people telling me this kid is the next big thing. I saw Robert Garcia's Unfiltered, with them saying that this is Golden Boy's best signing since Virgil Ortiz. So really high opinion in regards on this guy. And it was really cool to see him adjust because his opponent was like this little Tasmanian devil-like style. And Joel Iriarte really stayed composed and was able to get a second round knockout in his pro debut. And what is better than that? I hope I can get an interview with him in the next Golden Boy event. But, great pro debut with Golden Boy. The second fight was also a second round knockout with Sweet Tea Kildkruth. Is that how you say his name? We're calling him Sweet Tea. Sweet Tea also got a second round stoppage and did his usual backflip celebration. And this guy's a cruiserweight. Recently signed to Golden Boy as well. So it's really cool to see him develop, and he landed some really massive shots, and I'm excited to see how he develops, especially knowing that they got Zurdo now as a cruiserweight, right? They can definitely keep putting him in those undercards and see how it eventually, hopefully, pairs up with maybe a mega fight against him in the future. This was also Sweet Tea's first time with Bomac in his corner. And while it's, this is a prospect and improvements are going to keep happening, I definitely noticed some better leg work and better defense from Sweet, even though, he's definitely going to keep showing improvements as he develops. But it's really cool to see how Bomack's going to uh, shape and better mold this prospect. The card started slowing down when Eric Priest, middleweight prospect, also recently signed with Golden Moon Promotions, uh, earned his first unanimous decision. And it's not like it was a bad performance. It still was very much dominant, even hurting his opponent a couple of times. But he just never really stepped, the foot on the gas pedal to fully pursue ending his opponent. And maybe that's okay. Maybe he does need the rounds in, and he was dominant the entire time and was never really hurt, regardless of getting tagged a couple times here and there. But this is boxing, and he remains undefeated, and I still would like to see how he develops. Now, in the co-main event, Floyd Schofield was supposed to have probably, another KO highlight knockout reel to add it to his resume. But instead, he got Estody Suero picking him up like this is some sort of WWE match with your little brother, and just kept picking him up and throwing him and slamming him on the ground. He kept, shouldering him. After Suero in the first round saw that he was not really going to get anywhere, not outboxing, obviously, someone as talented as Schofield is already as early in his career, it seemed like he started getting frustrated, and then just he went to immediately try to make Schofield as uncomfortable as possible, but while being as dirty as possible. And it was just really ugly for the sport, in my opinion. These are the things that hurt the sport, in my opinion. And I hope that I never see Suero again. And it's funny because once, the fight was over and we were walking around the Cosmopolitan and we ran into other fighters from the Salas team, we were like, hey, like, what did you think of your stablemate or the same, your gym mate, ending the fight like that? And we thought they were going to say something like, hey, maybe he got, the nerves got the best of him. No, they straight up were like, oh yeah, no, he's fucking dirty. Like, straight up. So I really hope we never see this guy again. Shout out to Schofield for adjusting well and not getting frustrated back and maybe doing some dumb stuff himself and also getting disqualified. So maybe not the best showing that he hoped for, but he did adjust well, and it only keeps making me want to see him more. He called out Shakur. There's everybody calling out Shakur. So he's got to get, like, you go to the meat market, get a numerito, and hold up, wait your turn, siéntate un rato. So in New York, to celebrate St. Patrick's Day weekend, Kalen Walsh won his fight, regardless of, like I said, he was eating tacos. Good for him. Maybe it was a little treat. I'm not judging. Good for him. Again, 360 Promotions card on UFC Fight Pass. I personally missed the card, but here are some highlights if you want to check that out. And also, even though I didn't watch the UK card, because whatever those folk do over there on that side of the pond is none of my business most of the time, but I did see that Joe Joyce got a victory. And good for him, because we know that he had gotten got in his last fight, and it seemed to be over for him, regardless of having a really good come up. But he seems to be back, and good for him. Let's see what the future holds for him. He did say that he's ready, to try to get belts again and try to be in contention with the top dudes. But with the heavyweight division being the way that it is right now, I feel like he's another type of guy that's going to have to take his numerito and sit the fuck down for a little bit. Now, for upcoming fight this weekend is also a fight that is across the pond, but this one I am more interested in because it does have Jose Zepeda, who, as we know, had a pretty decent career at the 140 division, because he was, in title contention twice, and he got pretty close to becoming a champion at 140. I think he became like a hanky-panky champion at one point, but then lost to Regis Prograis, or lost, I think, vacant to Regis Prograis. And he gave Jose Ramirez a really good run for his money in Fresno. So I really feel like he's hit or miss. But I do want to see what he does, because this is another, Mexican versus UK guy thing that we can try to get bragging rights about. No offense, So yes, he'll be facing Delton Smith in the UK, and Terry Harper's in the undercard. That's another reason why I want to tune in, because Terry Harper's a girl who got knocked out by Alicia Baumgartner when Alicia Baumgartner first became champion. She knocked her out like pretty freaking cold. She was all cold on her feet. I remember, you guys, that's when Alicia kind of jumped into stardom and got signed with the Zone. Amazing fight. Now Alicia, she's got her own issues going on. But I do want to see what Terry Harper goes from here as she challenges this champion. But as far as that, I am going to be looking at the undercard just because it's Saturday and there's boxing. So I hope that you guys tune in. That is going to be a UK card. It's going to be one of the earlier cards here if you're watching in the US. And that is going to be live from the Zone. Now, Top Rank continues to go on a signing spree, and good for them, because I love Top Rank fights. I like watching them develop talent and their matchmaking most of the time. So I really am excited to see all the fighters that they're signing. They're just signed this guy that was going to the Olympics, Ali Fellis, and it's really that I see how they're getting a lot of heavyweights. We have that guy from Tulare, which I forgot his name, but they have him really up there trying to get a lot of highlight knockouts. And I believe that they're going to start doing the same with what's his name? Ali. And they also signed Christian and Billy, who, if you guys watched my interview with Jose Benavides Sr., Benavides' trainer, he said that they were actually watching his fight because that was someone that they were trying to see if David could fight, because he is undefeated and he had a spectacular knockout in his last showing in a Top Rank card. So glad that they signed him. It gives a good other name to the division for for different promotions to work together for this, super middleweight division that seems to be popping right now. So great signings by Bob, the Bodfather himself, once again this week. The Golden Boys officially signed Joel Iriarte, who just had his pro debut in the undercard that we just talked about in Las Vegas. And like I said, got a lot of messages about this kid being the real deal. So good for Golden Boy. Golden Boy seems to be also really strengthening their stable recently. And Oscar, when he invited us to his house, he was telling us that he had a lot of big fights coming up. And the way that I see all these big fights literally coming up, I'm like, dang, maybe he's onto something here. Like, maybe he's onto something, maybe he's not, because the way that it's barely 2024, we already had all these fights, and they have a supposedly big fight for Virgil coming up, and then all these signing these big kids that have a big future in the sport. I'm just really excited for Golden Boy moving forward. Now, Salita Promotions, which is a much smaller local promoter, signed Michael Rivera, and that's really interesting because Michael Rivera lost to Frank Martin and then popped positive for a banned substance or a questionable substance, and then they said that he took like an edible or something before the fight, which my brother cries, why would you do that? Maybe it was like CBD, they thought, and it was like an actual gummy. Who knows? But point is, he lost. I personally think Frank Martin would beat him regardless if he was off the Zaza. But I mean, I still think Michel Rivera is does have a really decent future. I do want to see what he can do in the division, even though again, this division is just one of the most stacked divisions. But Michel Rivera is one of those guys that was his style, and he does try to do the whole mimicking Muhammad Ali thing. I'm interested. I'm intrigued, and I know he lost to Frank Martin, but his style and skill before that, and even in that fight, still leads me to believe that he can have decent fights with other top guys. So let's see how him being now with the Zone and Salita Promotions, how that opens up his options to what he can do with his career now. And let me know in the comments what fights you see coming from Michel Rivera, or what fights do you want to see from the Dominican. Now, over the weekend, we also learned from an Instagram post in Roberto Duran's official accounts that he is right now hospitalized or being treated for a heart condition. And I just want to, remind everybody to collectively pray. If you're not a religious person, send good vibes. Keep them in your thoughts. Roberto Duran is, getting treatment, and I just hope he gets better. Um, he's probably one of my favorite fighters of all time based on style alone. I know he has that controversy with the No Mas situation, but stylistically, he's probably one of my favorite fighters of all time. And I do wish him a speedy recovery. And I hope we still get a couple more years with him around and we get to see him at more boxing expos because he's a really, really amazing legend and really good guy to be around the fence. So I hope that we all collectively send our good vibes, and if you're, religious, send your prayers out to Roberto Duran and his family, who are currently going through this situation. Now, on this week's version of Twitter Fingers, we have Shakur Stevenson, who seems to be a reoccurring guest in this section, going off on Bill Haney, saying that he is ready to jump as a replacement opponent should Ryan Garcia not make it to fight night, and that he's willing to step in and fight Devin Haney on April 20. And he said he called Bill and Bill didn't answer. They didn't reach a conclusion. And of course, went immediately to Twitter and said, hey, I'm not going to negotiate here with you. Just, let me know if it happens or else, duck, basically, is what he's saying. And even though he's saying I don't negotiate over Twitter, is weird because he keeps saying it on Twitter. So it's like, my brother in Christ, you brought it to Twitter. But regardless, I think that would be a great option. I would love that. But is it realistic? No, because Barboza is already there again with his ticket at the meat market. Like, El Sigue, right? Technically, he's next. But Shakur also then went, shots fired at William Zepeda during the fight, calling him a bum, saying that, his style is robotic, a machine, and that he will be able to take him no problem. And once again told Oscar de la Hoya to call Bob Arum and get together and make that fight. Obviously, I would love that shit. We just talked about it. I would love to see that. I would love to see how Shakur reacts to the volume punching that comes from Zepeda. And maybe he can get him with a good, shot to the body coming in. And maybe he just, again, completely outclasses another volume puncher and just completely continues to cement his reputation of this untouchable guy. And I would just love to see it. But given his recent fights have been not that great, I would still rather have him face probably either Tank or the winner of Campos Lomachenko, if I'm being fucking for real. Now, Ryan Garcia. Oh my God, Ryan Garcia. I feel dumb sometimes for feeling bad about him because he sometimes really feels genuine, right? That he is genuinely concerned. And other times it just seems like he's pandering to QAnon. So I'm like, I don't know if I should even give him attention, because if I'm giving him attention and he's pandering to QAnon, then I'm just helping at that. So like, I just hope that he is all good and dandy, but he was in his latest online little rant, he went on saying that he was going to sue the New York State Commission if they decided to try to have him have a mental health evaluation. Because according to him, he feels like if Mike Tyson fought in New York, they wouldn't test him for weed, or they wouldn't test him, period. And like, I don't know why, Mike Tyson's basically like, why the fuck he said fuck me for? Because what does Mike Tyson not do anything? Like, I didn't understand that, because fuck it, I guess Mike Tyson's fighting Jake Paul, but like, neither of those guys are clean. I think we all know that. Like, I'm pretty sure Mike Tyson's, and I mean like with cannabis, right? Like, he's not gonna stop smoking. And Jake Paul, let's be freaking for real. We don't know what whole set of pharmacy is up there with Big Baby Miller, right? Like, but no one's really checking for Jake Paul or Mike Tyson. But Ryan Garcia, like, you're an up and coming guy, so he's up here saying that it's against his constitutional rights, that because of what he's saying online, they're coming after him for a mental health evaluation. But to me, posting a TikTok drinking straight out of a like liquor bottle, my brother in Christ, you have to. That's like not. You shouldn't be doing that. That's like Chavez got busted for weed. Um, Benavides got busted for his snow, so why would you do that? Like, that just doesn't make any sense. So in the latest shenanigans, that's what's going on with Ryan. Will he make it to April 20? Find out on the next Dragon Ball Z. And lastly, I did do an opinion piece on Floyd Mayweather. Of course, he's a very polarizing figure in the sport. Many hate him, many love him, regardless of how you feel about him. Inside or outside the ring, there's no doubt that he's one of the greatest ever, and one of the greatest, if not the greatest, of this my timeline, I guess. But I really, regardless of him being, the executioner in his own way, I really always enjoyed his fights, regardless of him beating our guys. But outside of the sport, he does tend to be a lot of controversy, and people tend to bring him up whenever they're fighting online, they do like to call him, they bring up his DV charges. I'm not going to really go in depth into it because I don't know how YouTube works with that. And I do not want to get this flagged. So people bring up his DV charges. We've seen it in press conferences. We've seen anybody who takes a jab at Mayweather bring up his DV charges. And while the most recent ones are up to like 2012, I think 2017, I think there's more things that we can talk about recently that Mayweather has done, like privately fund. And we shouldn't take that lightly. And I think that should be because it's more recent. I'm not saying that we shouldn't bring awareness to DV, but because these are current events and these are things that affect everybody's liberation, I think that it was important that I bring it up. And give it a read if you are open to taking in a new perspective about the intersectionality of boxing personalities outside of the sport. And that was basically it for this week's version of What Did I Miss? I'll see you guys on the next one. We'll be covering Canelo versus Munguia's press conference on Tuesday. So subscribe so that you can go ahead and get all that content. Turn on your notifications so you can get the content both on TikTok. I don't know if TikTok's getting banned, whatever. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. I'll be very active posting from the press conference. So I will see you guys on the next one, and